Wow. This is really quite awesome. Welcome everyone to the Alumni Panel 2016. Woo! And these are my panelists. Let me show you them. First off, we have Olof Swearathon Valentin. And his neighbor at the table as well as in Stockholm, Maria Be Nice Nordqvist. And then we have Karin, I only made 7 mistakes Brue. Niklas, capitalism on crack, Hallin. And at the end of at the table, we have a new face for some of you, and that's Fred Ström from Pixel Ferrets. Woo! I heard that you and Teddy, the other guy at Pixel Ferrets, together with Vilja Svensson, you had a duel over the seat at the panel. Which game were you dueling it over?
Needhog.
Oh, of course.
Only the true game, you know.
The only true game.
The only true way to do it, of course.
Okay, yes, of course. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I misheard you. I was like, what about Secret of Grindia? By the way, a quick introduction. Pitch Secret of Grindia.
Should I pitch it?
Yeah, yes. For those of you who don't know what Secret of Grindia is.
Retro action top-down RPG. It's in pixel art. You can play co-op, and it's really grindy, but in a good way.
And it's available on Steam. For how much?
For 13 euros, I think. Not sure.
Okay, so that's our permanent seats. We also have an empty seat over here. It's not that we are one man short or one woman short, it's just that this is the hot seat. So it's an open seat that anyone of our other alumni in the audience can jump to if they feel like it. So if there's a question like, that's a really good question, I have an answer for that one, or that's a really interesting question, I want to answer that, they can just jump up to the chair. Or if anyone in the panel thinks that we should call that guy or that girl to the seat, they can do that as well. Or you, the audience, can also say that we want to hear so ever to answer that question as well. So go nuts. This is an empty seat for you. And the panel is made up of 3 sections. First, we have some warm-up questions, followed by questions that you have sent in advance. And after that, if we still have time, we open up the questions from the audience or from the floor. So let's start with some easy warm-up questions. First off, who are you? When did you study? And what are you doing now? Starting with Olof, and then you just...
Okay,
yep.
First one, who am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you said who I am, so... Okay.
Yeah, but I'm...
My name is Olof. Okay. I am a gameplay programmer at Starbreeze Overkill. And I make FPS shooters games, Payday, and now I work on a game called Crossfire. And I studied here, I think it was 2011?
You're looking at me?
Yeah.
Do you think I keep track of you?
Something like that, yeah.
Let's say it's 2011.
Yeah,
Sure.
it was 2011,
Yeah.
definitely. Right.
My name is Maria. I studied here from 2009 to 2012, and I'm currently a 3D environment artist at Lionbite.
Yes. Hello, I'm Karin. I'm the art director at Fast Travel Games, which is a VR studio in Stockholm. And I studied here at the same time as Maria, so I started here from 2009 to 2012.
Best class.
I wasn't in your class.
Best year.
Right, my name is Niklas. I studied from 2008 to 2012 or something like that. I am now a solo indie developer working by myself on a game about an elephant.
Yeah, my name is Fred, like you already know by now. I studied here the same time as you did.
Best year?
2009, best year. 2012.
Hey!
And now I am a animator slash graphical artist slash game designer, I guess. And I specialize in pixel art, and I work on Secrets of Grindia together with Vilja and Teddy. They're standing like back there somewhere.
Hiding in the dark. All right, we can do it like a ping pong, or rather a hot potato thing. So we'll be throwing back and forward here. So we can start with Fred again then. Why did you choose to study at game?
It was purely by chance, actually. I was
A great chance!
I was pretty set on becoming an art teacher, which, like, in hindsight would be a horrible mistake, I think. But I was just flipping through one of those, like, university pamphlets and like, oh, you can actually study to become a game designer? That's crazy, because I love making games, and then I just ended up here, basically.
Okay. Strange question. I didn't used to be that into video games particularly. Not that I didn't like video games, it just wasn't a big interest. But I saw this sort of poster for video game school, and I was like, you know, I like to draw and I like to think and I like to design. This seems like a good combination of all my skills. And then I had been on Gotland on like a summer camp for like writing short stories or something. And I was like, I like that. So if there is a video game school and it's on Gotland, then I was like, yeah, let's just do it.
Nice. I had this dream of becoming an animator, and then when I searched for on studera.nu or something, then I just searched for animation, and I think this was the only thing that came up. Apart from some like courses at other places, but because I attended the computer graphics and animation program, so like there's one place where I can learn to be an animator, and then I got here and I realized that I'm not good at animating, and I should make other stuff. But that was the thing that brought me here to animate.
I studied bild och form at high school or gymnasium, and I realized if I'm gonna be like a traditional artist, I'm not male and I'm not dead, so I'm not gonna make it on. So what am I gonna do with this? And then I applied to Gotland because I like games, and that seemed to be one of the best schools. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, in my case, I heard some good things about this education back in the days. But regardless, I just needed a degree to go to Japan, so that was it.
Remember that, that's why you need to study, to get a degree, to get to work in Japan.
That's actually true.
Yeah. America as well. So, what did you imagine the education would be like before you arrived?
I just wanted to write code and get my degree and then get out.
And you succeeded. That's good to always have a plan and stick by it.
It may sound a bit naive, but that was what I thought. I was like, it doesn't matter. So I had no idea, but it was pretty cool, right?
I studied game design and graphics, and I thought that I was gonna rita gubbar all the time, which I didn't do. There were a lot of writing reports and stuff, but I learned from that as well. So I think I was a bit misguided in the start. I thought that I was gonna draw all the time, which I didn't do. But yeah, it turned out great anyway.
Yeah, I didn't really have that much knowledge of anything really. Like I didn't have that much knowledge about this place. I didn't have that much knowledge about the industry. I just knew that I wanted to work with something that's related to animation or with games or like something that is entertainment. I want to work with that. So maybe I'll go here and then I'm gonna become this entertainment person afterwards. So yeah, I didn't really have that many things. I know that my mom, she had a really serious conversation with me. She's like, you know that Gotland is very far away. Yes, it's very empty there during winters. I still want to do it. And okay, then you should go. So I didn't have that many things. I just wanted to know that I wanted to do the things that you do here, and then I went to.
You have to realize that it was like 8 years ago. So the thing I had, so what I studied before I got here was like just plain science basically, and I had this idea that school was much more about like going to class and doing tests and stuff. So I guess the thing that surprised me here is the sort of this big social factor and the sort of almost lifestyle we have at the school, where you sort of stay after school and work on things and do a lot of projects and stuff. That was probably not my original plan. But hey, that turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember what my expectations were. It's such a long time ago, but I think it was just like, yeah, we're gonna make games and you're gonna like meet a lot of cool people, which ended up being exactly what happened. I nailed it.
Okay, so what was the most important thing that you gained from your education? And it doesn't need to be like a specific thing that you gained from a specific course or anything, but just general lessons, life lessons we can call them.
Whoa.
Oh, that's deep, man.
Maybe that like doing the bare minimum is never enough was probably like you realize that very quickly. And I think that has helped me a lot, because before I started here, I had a lot of trouble, which I think because I studied graphics as well, and I had a lot of trouble when you started like an art project. I would never finish it. Like I would just, yeah, okay, I'm going to start something new. I got this great idea, yeah, and I'm going to start something new. But when I got here, just being like super focused and like seeing stuff through to the end, I think it was like really helpful to me overall.
Yes. So first of all, I mean, I do now have a hard technical skill. Like I can build 3D models, and no matter what happens, there's always someone in the world who's going to need someone who can build 3D models, right? So I can, that is something I can actually sell nowadays. But on a more sort of soft value, I think that the most important things that I did here happened outside the classrooms. The lectures were pretty cool and all, and they were sort of a backbone to the education, but the actual sort of the important things always happened like in the evenings or between lectures or in the project groups and stuff like that. What exactly those lessons were is very difficult to sort of put into words.
The word lessons. Pretty much what's already been mentioned by Fred, like doing stuff and finishing stuff and doing your best and not like settle for things. That's something that I really that this place really taught me, because it was possible to just do bare minimum and then just like breeze through. You could do that. A lot of people did that, and like it's but it was like, yeah, having this urge to do stuff and to be the best and to like prove yourself and do all these cool stuff that you had in your head. And but yeah, and also like like I said, I didn't know much before I got here, and I hadn't drawn digitally at all. I didn't know 3D. I know that I wanted to do that, so like I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna learn that. So of course, like that's stuff I do every day now. That's what gets me jobs. That's what I do all the time. So thank you. It's great.
Well, it's hard to be the fourth person, I realized, because for me, in a very concrete way, 3D is something I think I would never have learned if I didn't go here. I needed someone tutoring me in the beginning so I could learn by myself later. So, and I work with 3D every day and I love it now, and it's great, but I don't know if I would have done that if I hadn't come here. If we're talking soft values, it's all the people I've met, both the teachers and you guys sitting here and the ones sitting over there, and now some of you. Because, as I said in my talk, and I think some of you mentioned, but I think we did it in a different way. We're not working with computers, we're working with humans, and it's great. Yeah.
Can I just because that's probably the most, like, the greatest thing that happened to me here was just meeting Teddy, and I knew Vilja from before, so that doesn't really count, but just hooking up with Teddy and like creating the company is absolutely the most important thing that happened to me. Is just meeting people and making new contacts is like what it's all about.
Definitely.
It's also good when you want to get a job.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm marrying a guy that I met.
Okay, my turn. Great.
Who did you marry?
Right, so I actually worked with games before coming to this education, but that was like 10 years ago. As a game designer, the very classic one, where you just type documents and stuff, right? And I never felt that I knew anything. Like, I felt helpless, that you couldn't do anything. You had to rely on other people to do what you wanted to do. So that's why this was my last chance, I felt, to actually learn a proper skill, to code and actually, gain something from it. So I thought to myself always, don't fuck this up. This is it, right? And it turned out okay.
I would say more than okay, but okay. Okay is okay. Since the game industry is like constant like in a constant flux or constantly changing, so is the education. But if you wish for something that you think that education should have given you, what would that be? And I can also say that if you think there's like if you don't have a good answer or anything, you can just pass on it as well. But I was just wondering because you have an audience now, and they're just being filmed, so we have to deal with these problems. If you have suggestions now.
Maybe they should.
Oh.
Teach everybody who is very young and don't have responsibility. Teach them responsibility very quickly.
Okay.
I had a lot of problems with people in my group that did not take responsibility, and I don't like that.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
I'd say when I studied here, I'm not sure what it's like now, but we could have assignments from November to January, and there were no set classes that I had to go to or any like smaller assignments that I had to turn in, just a huge thing at the beginning of January. So that's a very concrete way of making like the education better, to have increments that you have to get in there all the time, smaller assignments, because it's when you get an assignment in the beginning of January, in November you're thinking, woo, beer! And then at Christmas Eve you're drawing away because you haven't done it already. And maybe that's my fault, but I think also the school has a little bit of responsibility to like plan for their students to do great things. As I said, I'm not sure this is what's happening now, but it happened when I studied, and I think that could have been planned better.
I think we could blame beer instead, I think.
Good call.
Well, the education that I attended is cancelled now.
Yeah?
So I don't know if any.
So it's just a pass, no?
Yeah, I think it's a pass. I don't think that any of what I would say would matter to you guys.
Strange question again. So I have this little idea or fantasy, and I don't think it's actually going to be practical, but it sounds good in theory, which is teach all the art students a crash course in basic programming, and teach all the programming a crash course in like aesthetics. Like, not specifically to draw, but just to look at the picture and see if it looks good. And also maybe give everyone a crash course in like economics and how a company works and how contracts work. I don't know if you do that or if that, because like that's the thing that I struggle with most. Like, how do I pay tax? What is a tax?
Actually, some of that has been rectified now. So the first year course now, everybody does a little bit of programming, a little bit of art and everything. So yeah.
That's good.
Yep.
I would definitely echo what Niklas just said. Just having the programmers doing artsy stuff and vice versa is definitely really helpful. But I'm a bit biased, but I would definitely want more animation for the graphical students, because when we started here, I think we had one lecture in animation, and that was for the first 2 years, and then we had mocap in the third year, and that was everything that we had. So, and animations are like a huge part of the games. If you're not like making visual novels or something, which I'm guessing not everybody's doing. So more animation, definitely.
Should have gone to computer graphics and
Bring it back.
Segueing over to something lighter maybe, do you have any sort of, what do we call in Swedish, lumparhistoria, or war stories or funny anecdotes from your time as a student? And if you don't think you have anything that you want to share, you can just pass as well.
anyone?
I'm gonna pass now. I don't know. I can't really think of anything.
No, it's really difficult. Okay, so I have a backup story that I could tell. I was in a team. We made this little game called Walkabouts, where you could spin something around. And the thing about that, it was an arcade game, and the arcade box that we had was pretty small and lightweight, so it's kind of easy to carry. So we kind of became a go-to team for showcasing the school in different exhibitions and stuff like that, because it was easy to pack the box. And then one day we get a phone call, like 10 in the morning, going like, "Hi, do you want to go to DreamHack and show the school?" And I'm like, yeah, we can go to DreamHack. Good. The boat goes in 2 hours. And also, no one except you are gonna go. You're gonna have no supervisors and no one representing the school. And we was like, yeah, let's do it. So we packed this little box on the boat and we went to DreamHack with no one except us, like 4 students and 5 people. And we had these huge expensive TVs in the backseat of the car, out in the parking lot behind. And we always missed the boat home. So that went swimmingly. But it was also kind of like that sort of represent the sort of level of organization that you got this assignment like 2 hours before.
No, we talked about this earlier, discussing if we knew anything, but no, I have no...
There was so much drama.
Yeah.
Well,
Not the right forum.
you don't have to mention any names. Okay.
Maybe someone would want
I
to
have
take
a
the,
story.
All right, all of us a story. Okay, fire off.
It's actually from, I think this is from the first week that my year started out, right? And then there was an evening here at Rindy, and I was drinking beer with some guy standing over there. And this guy comes up to me, and he looks at me, and he says, "Do you know who I am?" And I'd be like, "No." And he says, "Not good." And I'd be like, "Okay, who the hell are you, man?" And apparently this guy is some CEO from a company that used to exist on this island, right? No names. Right? And I was like, okay, whatever, man. So a couple of years later, a good friend of mine actually works at this guy's new company. And I tell her about this story, and she's like, "Oh, that's so typical him." And then she tells me, "You should do the same thing to him." And I'd be like, "Yeah, do that." So one night, and this was actually a couple of months ago in Stockholm, I was there, and she was there, and she comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, it's time." And I'd be like, "Okay." So I just, and he sits there with his entire company down in this like chair, right? And I go up to them all, and I just bend down and I look at him and ask him, "Do you know who I am?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, and then and it's quite an uneasy, it's quite tension by now, right? Of course, because his employees and they're like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And then I look at them all and I tell them what I told you. 5 years ago, Rindy, this guy comes up to me and he's like douchey and he says this, and it was you. And then they all laugh.
Did he laugh?
Yes. We all laugh.
I just want to mark it. There's an empty chair here for anyone who wants to grab it. No.
Break some muck.
You can call somebody to the stand as well if you would like. If you feel mean. Oh! Is this another war story?
No.
Dan, okay. Welcome. Who are you? You need to introduce yourself.
I'm Daniel. I studied here the same best year.
Best year.
I'm right now working as a developer for Resolution Games, where we make mobile VR.
Cool. Then you first for the next question then. When you started out in the industry, was there something that you had learned during your studies that you realized that the industry didn't necessarily know of?
Yeah, my first job was almost not in the industry. It was teaching game dev to people that studied in other places than Gotland. So I was very shocked that what we consider, or what I considered from my studies to be what game dev was, differed at that time to what the people that came in thought it was. And if it hadn't dawned on me earlier, it dawned on me then. Fuck, this is complex. but it also made me realize that, man, there's so much to learn here, and I want to be here as well. Yeah.
Cool.
What was the question?
Oh, sorry. If there was something that you learned during your studies that you realized when you started out that the industry wasn't aware of.
No, man. Can I come back now?
Maybe we can take it later in that case.
Okay.
Does anybody else have something?
I think it was that checkbox with preserve UVs that I showed you. No, actually I learned that on the job. No, actually not. I learned a lot on the job.
Cool.
But, it's we're saying the industry, like
with big quotation marks.
Something like the industry is teaching all of us, I think. But I felt it because it was very much like pre-production and film focus education that I went to, the computer graphics and animation, and I felt like that I had something that people that went to game educations didn't necessarily have, like the all that pre-production for film that is actually like you can apply that to games as well. So I felt a bit weird about that when I started out.
I have nothing. Nothing to ask.
No, I haven't been in the industry.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
I'm working with the same people.
But here's something that you might have an answer to then. Do you have a game you would recommend everyone to play that you find very inspiring?
Oh. Like one of the more recent games that I played that I felt was inspiring to me was Hyper Light Drifter. It's like it's a gorgeous game. It's like the mood is super cool, and like the brain behind the game, the dude, there's a really cool like Vice mini documentary about him. Like he has this terminal heart disease, and he like nestles that into the game in a really cool way. So that's probably like the first thing that comes to mind. Play it.
Yeah, I have a similar answer. Like from an inspirational or almost emotional core, my go-to game is going to be Psychonauts, because it was like their first game of that size, and they struggled so hard to make it work. And kind of didn't really, kind of crappy game, but they have so many ideas that they really wanted to push into it, and you can see that so clearly when you play it. So it's sort of endearing for its ambition.
It is a very hard question because there's so many games that we could talk about, and that would be an hour just talking about games that you should play. But on the top of my head, like what if anyone hasn't played Inside yet, then you should, because just to know that you can do that kind of stuff, and there's a place for this kind of stuff, and it's just amazing. So everyone should play it.
Yeah, I'm a bit on the same page because now in difference to when we studied, there are more and more indie games, and it's more out there. One game that I just recently played was the Stanley Parable, and I had super fun with it, and was mind-fucked many times. And I was like, did I really pay $20 for this? And I was like, oh, it isn't, what? No? So if you haven't played it, I'll suggest it. I was blown away, and I've thought about it a bit. I think for me, if a game sticks with you and you're thinking about it when you're not playing it, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, what? maybe it's a very good game.
I like a game called Thomas is Alone.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. Because it's so simple but yet so complex at the same time. And the narrative is very intriguing as well. So if you haven't played that, give it a shot. It's also very short, which is good for me at least, because I don't have time to play any games. So I like games that are short, because then I can finish them.
Yes.
Yeah, so on that note, like the two games that I thought of now are, I like co-op games. I like sort of emergent gameplay where there's just a bunch of rules and something happens with those rules, especially in a co-op environment. And the two of my favorites on that category are games that are actually pretty bad, but they are so cool in idea that I think they have some value because of that. So I'm thinking of Cortex Command, which is like a 2D per pixel physics worms real-time craziness. And the other one is Signal Ops, which is you're an agent in a bunker going up to a television prompt, remote controlling agents in the field, in co-op where you see what the others do. It's hard to explain. Both games are terrible to control. It takes years to learn. I still have no idea how to play most, but there's something there.
Wait.
Hey!
I am Malin Lamberg. I also work at Lionbite with Maria. Whoop.
Same year.
Best year!
I have a game that I really love, which is made by a trans woman called Porpentine. It takes about 20 minutes to play. It's a text-based game, and you can find it online. Just search for Those We Love Alive. And it's basically about a person who wakes up in a very weird world, and it's described with words that just make you think of a universe that does not exist. You have, like, the images you get in your head from these sentences and words are very abstract and weird in a way that I've never seen a graphical game being able to do. And it also tries to tie together the player who plays them, because it asks you the first sentence, like, I was born in, and then you can change August, September, blah, blah, blah. And then it gives you like a name after that. And then you're like, whoa, I'm in this world. And it also tells you that every day you wake up, you walk around in this weird world and you drink dreams and stuff. It's very weird. It tells you, I draw the symbol of love on my arm. And then if you want to, you can engage with this on your own and actually draw symbols on your arm. And all the symbols are different because you are the one who imagines those symbols yourself. It was a very thought-provoking experience for me when I found this online. And it's made in Twine, which is free, so you can all make games like that yourself. It's really cool. Yes.
Cool.
Should I?
You can stay if you want to, but this might segue into what Danny was talking about, so maybe he will jump back in. So there's a saying that you grow as a designer by playing flawed games rather than good games. So do you have an example of flawed games you would recommend everybody to play in order to grow as a game designer or game developer?
Am I supposed to start?
Yeah, if you're still in the chair.
I actually do have another game that I really love, which is called Rule of Rose. It was cancelled in many, many countries because it was too explicit for some reason. It's about teenage girls bullying each other, and that's not okay. It's made by Japanese developers, but it's descripted as Western people, and it's terrible gameplay. It's like tank controls on a PlayStation 2, and you have a fork and you're supposed to stab monsters with it, and she does this every time she tries to hit, so she doesn't do anything. But what was cool with that is, like, in a way, and it's the same with Silent Hill as well, like they're not actually fighters, so they actually show that in the gameplay by making them terrible, and it's a horror game, and it's supposed to be because you cannot fight the monsters. It's terrible. It's really, really good.
The name again?
Rule of Rose.
No.
You don't play good games.
Yeah, well, if I play a bad game, I usually stop. So, no, I'm sorry.
When I saw this question, I got to think of a funny story. If it's okay.
Oh yeah, sure, cool.
Because because I really it's very hard for me to talk about bad games, like because it's someone's baby. I don't want to talk. I don't want to like bash a game.
Right, it's just flawed, you know.
And and a couple of years back, a friend of mine, Nicholas, he was asked to speak at the Nordic Game Conference about like this game that tell us about the game that you hate. And he's like, I don't hate any games. So like I can't talk about I can't talk shit about other people's games because I love my game so much. Like this is my baby, and I would be terrified if someone would talk shit about it. And so he and me and some other people, we teamed up at the game jam, and we made a terrible game for him to use during that presentation. And some of us were just like, we were faking a blog with blog posts like years back. So if someone would actually search for this, they would find stuff. And we had a Wikipedia page, and we had to refresh it all the time, redo it all the time because Wikipedia takes down that shit really fast. And that page and everything, and also a game that was really, really, really terrible. And he talked a lot of shit about it. And we were like, yeah, it's the worst game ever. So yeah, that's how we deal with that kind of stuff.
What's the name of the game?
Oh shit, I don't remember. I think it was.
That's a weird title.
It was something with a fox. We named it something that was really hard to Google. Like it was something that was actually like if you Google it, you would kind of not find anything. But if you find it, then you will find the blog and you will find the webpage and you will find anything. But I don't remember what it was called. It was a shitty platformer.
Okay, yes.
So do you want to talk shit about it? Yeah,
It's not talking shit. I mean, like more in a constructive way. Like there's a flawed game.
I started out with Psychonauts, which I already said was a bit crappy. So I already answered this question, but I want to say that I played the new version of Tomb Raider. And also, I haven't actually played Uncharted, but I had it kind of similar. And it's really, really easy to play Tomb Raider. Not in the sense that it's easy to play, but it's convenient to keep playing. Like it's almost like a book where you just flip the pages. And it was a really cool experience because I don't really play games like that a lot. But I did it this time, and I was like, wow, this is a whole new world for me. But it's also kind of like if you start counting the actual things that you do, because you mostly just, now I walk forward, and now I press a button, and now I walk forward. And a lot of the puzzles are like 2 or 3 steps of really simple interactions. But you don't really think about that, because it's all presented so ridiculously well, with like animations and particle flex camera movements, and like the polish is so good, but the system below it, if you start actually looking for it, is kind of primitive in a way or something, and that was interesting for me to sort of start looking at, coming from more, I don't know, system-heavy game or sort of less polished game, I would say. So that was an experience for me.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, but like you shouldn't really bash other people's game because I mean somebody has actually worked on it, so it's a bit crappy and it's so subjective. But like the one thing that comes to mind, I recently played all 3 Max Payne games, and like the first 2 games, Max Payne 1 and 2, are really they're really great games in like how like the flow of the game. It's like there's no cutscenes except for like the comic strip stuff that you can skip if you want to. The gameplay is like really arcadey and nice. And then you get to the 3rd game, and it's like it's a really good example of the people that made the 3rd game. It seems like they totally miss what made the first 2 games good, because like the setting of the first two games, like this really poetic, depressing feeling you get from Max Payne, that doesn't exist in the third game. And like there's cutscenes fucking everywhere. There's cutscenes for opening doors. There's cutscenes for like walking 10 meters, and then like there's a cutscene of people jumping in, and then you have to shoot them. But that, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad game. It's just bad for like me subjectively. But that's like the one thing that I thought about.
I actually thought of something. I remember I read a thread. There was this Nintendo studio who were developing like a Metroid game that didn't have anything to do with Metroid Prime. It was like you played a squad of soldiers in that universe, and it was so bashed on forums for not being Metroid Prime, because people wanted Metroid Prime, and the fans were writing lists that this game should be cancelled, that they shouldn't do it. And as you were saying, someone's salary is at stake here, because fans they want their games, and you got to think about that if you're gonna bash games, because yes, you might not like the game, but that's someone's workplace. And I guess a lot of you guys maybe might end up at a company where you work at a project that you might not love all the time, or you can like make commercial games or whatever that you're not loving, but it's a job. So bashing games on forums is maybe not a great idea.
You develop this great sympathy for other developers.
Yeah.
So
It
when,
takes so much time and dedication.
when like No Man's Sky or something happened, you feel so sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Yes.
And you deeply sympathize with the developers.
Can I just add something to this?
Yeah.
Because I don't agree with anything in the And the thing is,
Interesting.
yeah. On Payday 2, we get a lot of crap from the forum members, and a lot of good stuff too, right? But there's a lot of crap and bashing. And I want to add there's also obviously a very difference between presenting, criticism to something, which is what I think you're looking for here. Not just like random bad-mouthing words. Criticism, you must be able to take that. Yes, absolutely. Because if you hide from that, what are you gonna do? Like, you can't hide from that. Grow up. Come on. You must be able to present that. And bashing, like, who cares? I mean, No Man's Sky, they had it coming. I mean, yeah, it's not the developer's fault. Sony is the one who's marketing the game with something that it wasn't, and you buy it and you get it, and it's not what you think it is. So of course they bash. Duh, right? So I'd say, if you want to bash. Because the developers, we get bashed all the time. Yes, it's pretty boring, but for members, they write things all the time. That's what they do. They're sometimes confused. They're gamers. They have opinions. They do this, yada, and so on. Whatever. Man. You can choose who you want to listen to and who you do not want to listen to, and that's what it is.
But it is different from bashing people, writing stupid comments on blog posts
You
or
mean
whatever.
directed towards the person?
Or the company, it doesn't matter. Then like writing lists to stop developing a game. And because that's a studio who employ people who get a job, and if you're gonna stop developing the game, you're out of a job, and they have families.
Do you really believe that because some people on forums write stuff like that, the studio will quit doing what they do? No, they won't. They have numbers on how the game is doing, numbers, sale numbers, and that talks a lot more than what people post on the forums. An example of this, like on Payday 2, right? We have community managers who do this and that and so on. And there was like one issue at some point where, a couple of people were like, oh, this thing is really bad, oh, we need to, this is really crap, oh, fuck you guys, like, this is bad. And the community manager was like, oh, look, marketing, this is an issue, and this is a problem. And they're like, how many people says this is a problem? 4 of 15,000? Really? Fuck it. So yeah. So you can have a choice there.
This was a heat. Heated arguments.
I mean, I've lived with this for over a year, so I think I know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?
But it's a big difference from big words worth mentioning is that it's a big difference from big companies and indie developers.
Yes.
And like saying something bad about a big developer, like that doesn't really matter. But I don't know. I don't want to sit here and talk shit about like some.
Let's agree to be constructive in our criticism then. Another saying is that you learn most from your mistakes. So, what has been your biggest mistake that, in hindsight, had the biggest learning outcome for you? Which of the 7 you mentioned would it be, Karin?
I need to think about that.
Okay, right. Well, it's Daniel who is first out, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So my biggest personal mistake was that I didn't know myself good enough to know when I needed to step down. Because I was burning so hard for this that I burned myself in both ends of the candle too quickly. And that's something that's cost me, but has also taught me so much. So that's my biggest mistake.
What do you think?
My biggest mistake was, why didn't you just, check up, what the requirements are to get a work visa in Japan? I actually did, but it was like misinformation. So that was, very easy. Yeah.
I wish I spent a lot more time working on my own stuff when I was here. If I had, I would have developed more and gotten a job sooner. During the second year, there was a lot of drinking beer, and I wish I didn't do that. I wish that I sat with my portfolio more. Turned out great anyway, but I worked a lot the third year, and I wouldn't have gained a lot if I'd worked even more the second year.
My biggest mistake is not like one single mistake, I would say.
It's 7.
Those were not mistakes, those were really kind of bad things. No, but my biggest mistake would be to, like when I started out, I touched on this in my talk as well, like I was so thought that everyone knew so much, and they did, because I was just starting out and I worked with people that knew so much and they had so much knowledge, and I was afraid of seeming not good enough around them. So when they would talk about stuff, when they would have this argument about whatever that has to do with the games that we were making, I wouldn't raise the hand and say, I don't know what you're talking about, can you please explain this to me? Because I thought that they were going to think less of me. I thought that they were going to think that, oh, why is she here? Doesn't she know these things? I mean, and most of the things were like, of course I wouldn't know if I never released a game, or if I haven't worked on commercial products, of course I won't know this. But I thought that they expected me to know that, and then I was like, I'm gonna pretend that I know this, and I'm not gonna say anything. And that was a really big mistake, because you don't learn anything by doing that. Of course, then you go home and then you Google a lot. But I mean, it would be way easier if you just say, sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Can you please explain this to me? Can you please take this one more time so I get this? And that would make me develop more, and that would make the studio and the group and everyone just getting forward faster. So I would say that that mentality was, when I think back, that was the biggest mistake.
Cool. I think my biggest mistake was attempting to start a pretty big company straight out of school. For no particular reason except, you're apparently going to have a company if you're a game studio, it's a company, right? And we didn't really have a clear understanding of what that would be, and also what the purpose of the company would be. Because we talked to economists or whatever they are called, and they say that yes, you need to have a company because you need to be sort of protected from going into financial debt or something. Like if you're not personally responsible for the debt of the company or something like that. And it's like, that's kind of not super important unless you're gonna be dumb and take a lot of loans that you can't pay back or spend a lot of money that you don't have. You're not really gonna go bankrupt anyway. And I mean, I'm just as likely to go personally bankrupt by buying like hot dogs for all my money than I am at running my company into the ground, because it's like the same kind of dynamic. So maybe in hindsight I would have liked to not go so formal and commit that much straight out of school with such a big team.
I think the biggest mistake that we've made with Pixel Ferrets, the company that I'm working on now, is probably announcing a release date for our game super early when we really had no real concept of when the game would actually be released. So I think when we started on the game in 2011, right? And I think we said that we were going to be finished in 2012 or 13, and we're still years away from it being finished. So that, and you quickly realize that the internet never forgets. So that was probably it's not a huge mistake. It hasn't bitten us in the ass really, but it was a mistake at least. So yeah, probably that.
All right, so moving on to questions that have been sent in advance, and the first one is probably geared more towards Maria and Olof and Karin, and perhaps Daniel, if you would like to stay, if nobody else throws him off. How is a typical work day at your company, and how was your journey to get that position you're having now? So maybe we should start with Karin then.
That's a pretty big question. How's the journey to get that position that you want? That was what you said, right?
That's what it says, but we could probably make it shorter, the step before that.
Yeah.
What we're doing just before you got the position.
What am I doing before the position now?
Walking through the doors or something.
Yeah. No, before the job that I have now, I worked at Rovio, where I was the lead artist there, and then when the Fast Travel Games were funded and there were some people from Rovio going there, we talked and they asked me to come. So that's how I ended up there pretty much. And what was the second question?
Typical work day. What do you do?
Typical work day?
Yeah.
I don't work. I drink coffee. No, but typical workday depends a lot on what where you are in the project. And since we are a newly funded studio, we are in a really starting up phase kinda. So it's a lot of which makes the days very, very different from each other, because it's a lot of trying out stuff, it's a lot of concepting, there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of discussing, and as time goes, we will probably go more and more into a more production state where I actually go in and I do stuff, and then leave for the day. But so it depends a lot on where in the production you are as a company, pretty much, I would say.
I actually started as an intern, although I had 2 years of experience at Lionbite. I was desperate to get a job because I was at home and I hated it. But I was studying at the time, so I got CSN, so I thought it was fine. But then I ended my studies and I didn't want to study anymore, and I thought, well, I've proven myself. So I made a gutsy move and said, if I don't get any salary, I won't come here. And they said, okay, then you will get some salary. Doesn't work, and I urge no one to work for free. It's bad. It's bad for everyone. It was okay for me because I really needed to get out of my home. People are different. Some like to work freelance, stay at home to work. But I can't do it. I need to socialize. So for me, that was very good. And it was for a short while I was studying, and I did some other jobs on the side, so it was fine for me. Regular work day. I come in at 8. I like to be there early. We have meetings at 10, stand-ups, talking about what people are doing. I'm modeling a lot. I'm placing walls and floors. We have a saying at work. I do a lot of golvväggartak, building environments. And then Malin is saying, "Come on, man, you can't put this here." And I'm like, "Oh, sorry." And then we're discussing stuff and compromising. And she's great to work with, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, so when I was in Japan and I really wanted to get away from Japan, I actually first got a job at this company owned by that guy. Right? And I was like, I don't really want to work there. It's more of an escape plan, right? So I remember that I talked to a guy I knew at Starbreeze, and he was talking about, "Oh, you never had an interview here, did you?" And it's like, "No, let's do something." So I texted him, and he was like, "Yeah, let's get something going." And then I had a work test, and they were like, "Yeah, it's good," and so on. And that was okay, but it was also good timing because they had 2 coders who just left. So they were like, "Oh, please come." So that's like, I think there was somebody who was talking about that, timing. Who was that? Was that you?
It was you, right?
You, yeah. Timing. There we go. Timing once again is good timing. So that's it. And normal work day, come into the office between 9 and 10, and you talk with people, type code, talk with people some more, meetings maybe, do some stuff, go home at about 7 maybe, unless I'm feeling very ambitious and I want to do something else or finish something off. Yeah.
So I think in some ways of counting, I'm on my 4th job now, and all of the previous ones, the thing that that are still the common denominator is that I've sort of profiled myself as coming in and bringing, or try to bring, technical structure to smaller companies or startups, or sort of help them with getting that rolling. So I've worked at different places that have very different needs, but the common theme has always been that there's been sort of easy ways of from helping with getting some structure in that. So with that, my title right now is actually split in 2. So my work days are 2 sorts. One is where I develop games. It's very similar to what these guys are doing, but as a coder. And the other one is at the same desk, at the same computer, but still instead taking care of version control systems or build systems, or helping out with building tools for artists or other developers or what it could be. So, and again, also it depends heavily on what the project is, what phase of the project you're in, what the size of the team is working with that, what the needs are. So my work days are very different depending on where the company is at that time. And sometimes I've got a month of game dev, and sometimes I've got a month of tooling, and then every other. So I like that as well. That's what I like, having different types of things.
Cool. Do you want to sit around for the next question?
I'm waiting for something.
Throw him off. Or maybe you want to call somebody. Or you can call someone. Call somebody. Who are you going to call? Have you ever thought about accessibility? Sorry, maybe I should wait till it quiets down again. Have you ever thought about accessibility in any game you have worked on? For instance, visually impaired or special controls for people with special needs?